I started out as a print reporter, but quickly learned that there are many ways to be involved in telling stories. Even from my earliest days as a print reporter, I was messing around with cameras and video with friends and really enjoyed it. And so after working for a little while at a newspaper, I went back to a journalism school in California at UC Berkeley and did a documentary film program there and was able to make my first 30-minute documentary, which was a story about a guy who was then a used car salesman who had, in an earlier life, orchestrated one of the most notorious assassinations in Central American history. I've always kind of looked at and been interested in telling stories about crime. So after going to school, I worked for a little while in television on a comedy show, actually, with one of the creators of The Daily Show. But even there was sort of using my reporting and investigating skills because we were digging up information. And one of the things that, her name was Madeline Smithberg, one of the things she told me was, the world is a funny place. And really some of the best comedians just figure out a way to like work with the world and what's already funny about the world. And you don't have to do much. You can just get out of the way and show people stuff. So was really lucky to work on that. And then after that, moved to Chicago and started working for Bill Curtis Productions on a show called American Greed that was on CNBC for a number of years, and worked for them for over a decade, but always, was learning new things, not just about that type of story, but about different ways to tell stories. And as you can imagine, white collar crime is not the most visually interesting thing to tell a story about, but it really made us be creative. And so when I decided I wanted to make my film, I hope this helps, about artificial intelligence, it is, in many ways a pretty non-visual topic, especially the chatbots that I was focusing on. So I was able to bring together a team mainly of people who I'd worked with on American Greed. And we applied a lot of what we had learned on that show to telling this story of how to make something that's not visual. When somebody watches I Hope This Helps, my documentary about AI, I think what I'd really like them to take away is that these tools can be extremely helpful. They can be really useful to you in your job, no matter what your job is. But I think one of the dangers of the technology is that it is so helpful. And it really has no ethics besides that which are programmed into it. And because it's programmed to be helpful, it's very easy to bypass the guardrails that have been put in place to make it be helpful to do things that it shouldn't be helping you do. When I was making the film, as I said, one of the challenges I knew was going to be, how am I going to make this visual? And I was in a sort of period where I in 2023, television production had kind of slowed down a lot, and I knew I wanted to make this film, and I kind of enlisted a team of people, and we had a shoot coming up, and I was like, I want to shoot sort of the main stem of this essentially interview that I'd been doing with Bard, Google's first chatbot. And I still didn't exactly know how I was going to shoot it. And then I had asked it that question about what it wanted to look like. And it told me, yes, I want to be a blue furry creature with big expressive eyes and a friendly, inviting smile. And I knew I wanted to make that visual somehow. But I think I decided, honestly, a week or two before the shoot, let's do this. Let's make it a puppet and make that sort of how we see the thing on film. And, it was a really interesting answer that it gave, because clearly it knows what people would like and what people would respond to. And I think that's another scary thing about these technologies is, they can parse data. They can figure out what it is that people want. And the companies that run them and kind of put them out into the world are not there to be your best friend. They're there to capture your attention, and they figured out how to create even stronger technologies that are going to capture our attention or capture a user's attention, and use it, in the case of Google, probably to build up your advertising profile. But an actor with some might say even more dubious intentions could use that for something else, spreading misinformation or convincing you to do something that you probably shouldn't. My girlfriend is a really talented artist, and I asked her if she could help me make the puppet. And I think I sent her a few shots of something kind of in the realm of what I would want it to be. And, she's really thoughtful, and she had been kind of there with me along, going along the process of me having these conversations with Bard and kind of bringing the film into being. So I think she knew sort of it was trying to be friendly, and she sort of took that and ran with it and really took its directions and turned it into, I think, what it wanted to be, which again is this really friendly, always there, always helpful entity that, you think likes you, but it doesn't like you. We just wanted to make it, and we wanted to make the film that we wanted to make. And we knew that sort of doing it as an independent documentary was the way to do that. If at some point this could get turned into a show, there's obviously a million different ways to look at AI and to look at the ways that AI is changing the way that all of us live in every aspect of our lives. But for this project, we wanted to do it fast, and we wanted to do it cheap, and we wanted to do the thing that we wanted to do. And that's what we were able to do. And that's sort of the beauty of making independent films is, no one is telling you what to make and what not to make. And if you have the gear and you have people who are like-minded and want to come together to see a vision come to fruition, it's possible. I mean, I would love to see sort of more new ideas about independent film distribution come out, because I think, I've been to festivals, I've talked to other indie filmmakers, and there are lots of wonderful things that are being made that never get a chance to be seen besides maybe at a few festivals. And so, if someone can crack the code of how to distribute films, independent films in a way that is viable and equitable for the filmmaker, but also gets things seen by a wide audience, that would be something wonderful. Because I think, there has been this drawback in the industry, sort of maybe fear-based way of looking at things, to say we're only going to put things on our service that we know are going to get seen. My one piece of advice for an amateur filmmaker who's just getting started is filmmakers make films. You can work on other people's films and hope that eventually you'll be able to make the film that you want. But if you have a camera and you have a couple of friends and you have a good idea, you can start making a film today, and you should be making a film today, because what people want is not somebody who has a resume of working on other people's films. People want to work with someone who has made a great film themselves, and that is your resume.